Starting.
Yeah, we're live.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون. فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين. صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum to all our viewers. We have a really special guest with us today, Shaikh Hashim Ahmad Saab. He is a scholar and he is a teacher, and he studied from Jami'ah Ummul Qura, Makkah Al Mukarramah, with a specialization in Quran and Hadith. And for the last 20 to 25 years, he has a lot of teaching experience, teaching in various Islamic institutes in Karachi, right? And moreover, he's also developed a business model which is known as the Ubudiya business model. And they offer consultancy to businesses who want to make their businesses more aligned with Islamic practices. He offers many different various courses on a healthy living lifestyle as well, right? And inshallah, I'll talk to you about that as well. But why we have him here today is because we're holding these special sessions of how people came to Islam or journey towards Islam. And so Sheikh Saab has graciously agreed here to come today and share his story. And it's because his story starts off back in the 1960s when he was actually living in Los Angeles. He grew up there as well, and he was living in Los Angeles, California, and he was pursuing a career in music, right? And now, subhanAllah, he's right there in front of you. And what we actually called him upon today is to actually hear his story of how he came from pursuing a career in music back in Hollywood in the 60s to now where he is today, a religious director in an Islamic institute in Southern California. And just to give you some personal insight, I attended Sheikh Saab's talk a few years ago back in Lums when he was speaking on the same subject. And when I heard it, it's so inspiring, because I think living in Pakistan and being born in a Muslim family, we truly really don't appreciate what Iman is, right? And when you hear this story, and when you hear how some people have to struggle or make this journey towards Islam, it's really boosts your Iman. And so when we were doing this series, the first person that came to my mind was Sheikh Hashim Saab, that we have to call him on. And alhamdulillah, jazakallah to him for graciously agreeing to come and speak about it. So without further ado, I'll give Sheikh Hashim Saab the mic so he can begin his talk. Jazakumullah khair. Sheikh Saab, you're live.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. So, mashallah, I'm just thrilled to be here, actually. It's very kind of you to invite me. And since the time is quite short and the topic is quite long, a journey towards Iman is something that it's a lifelong story. And we'll just go over some bullets today because we have a short period of time. You can go. I've also directed our brothers to share the link to several presentations that are longer if you're interested in the subject. Inshallah, very soon, hopefully, my autobiography, which has been decades in the making, that will be coming out as well. So just to start, pre-Islam. So actually, I was very fortunate that I had a very diverse sort of childhood. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, in an urban setting. My parents actually my father was a businessman. My mother was also well educated, and so we started out our journey, in my young childhood in Cleveland, Ohio, in an urban setting. But since my parents also were very attracted to natural lifestyle, my mother is a very accomplished nutritionist and dietitian and natural health, student, her whole life. And so we grew up like that. So we quickly moved out of the urban into a sort of rural, sort of a rural setting where we had a 5-acre estate and we had an organic farm, we had an organic garden. We used to eat from that garden. We had horses, and so we had a natural life. So I always loved nature. I mean, that was the thing. However, my father was basically, still is, he's still alive, make dua for him, and my mother as well. They're both still alive, and they're well into their 90s, and they're just wearing out. Otherwise, their health is, they don't have any major health issues at all. So I had from a very early, childhood, healthy, natural lifestyle. However, spiritually speaking, religious speaking, a-religious. I mean, like, religion was a taboo in our house. I mean, you don't talk about it, you don't think about it, you don't ask about it, period. Then in 1960, when I was around 10 years old, so we moved to a place in Durango, Colorado. It's like, actually, my father wanted to leave, the whole urban thing, and he'd run the family business and start a guest ranch. It's like a guest resort out in the middle of nowhere in the Rocky Mountains. We had 500 acres of just beautiful natural surrounding, and so that gave a wonderful, opportunity for me just to immerse myself in nature. So being an artist by nature, because I started music at like 4 years old. I was just enamored by listening to classical artists, at that very young age. And then by the time I was 5 and 6, I started playing and practicing. My whole family are musicians as well, so I was supported by that. And so, natural habitat connected to the mountains, to skies and nature and streams and animals, and and observing nature, and being a musician and artist, but being told that there's no creator, so it just didn't make any sense to me. By the time I started maturing a little bit and pondering, and one of my favorite pastimes was climbing up on my favorite mountain, which was about a half a day excursion, and then just sitting up on this mountain and just pondering and just looking at the creation, and just wow, like, hey, this just didn't happen. It's just so perfect. It's just so amazing. There has to be a creator for all of this. And so ultimately, in 1964, unfortunately, my parents had issues, and so we ultimately went with my mother to Southern California, where my grandparents had been living since quite a long time. So now, a young musician, in his teenage years, now he finds himself in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. Wow, I mean, that's exactly where we want to go. The real, the dream come true. And so here I am in Los Angeles. I don't care about school. I don't care about. In fact, I dropped out of high school, and I just went headlong into my musical career. And since Alhamdulillah, I was very talented, and I'd been doing this since I was a very small child, nurtured on this. So I started getting very popular as a sessions artist, with various groups and bands and singers, etc. And the thing was, though, that still this affinity with nature and this affinity with spirituality, which I started to explore now, that this creation, and the skies, and the earth, and animals and people and situations, and there's a creator to this. There's a spiritual connection with the of the creation to the creator now. So that had to be explored now. And at that period in the mid 1960s, so the spiritual thing also, that kind of movement started. Then the hippie movement started gaining traction. Natural, lifestyle, just sort of a revolutionary thing that, like, hey, the American dream is really not a dream at all. It's like more like a nightmare, and man is on a collision course. He's devoid of spirituality, with connection with real purpose in life. And so, where is it? And so my generation, you could say, was really a generation that turned the whole system upside down for a lot of people. And I think it really changed the course of history, which that's a long subject itself. I talk about that more in my book. So I started getting, along with the music, so I'm getting involved in all this spiritual thing. Anything that was spiritual, I just grab it, Zen, yoga, meditation, anything, just it has to do with spirituality. Okay, go for it, And so going through all of that, and at the same time, you know, experiencing Hollywood for what it really is. I mean, you see Hollywood for the glitter and the glamour, but musicians who have to deal with it see the filth and the nifaq and the hypocrisy and this, you know, greed, and it's just probably, if not the one of the most sickest environments that one could, you know, ever hap upon. And so as a young, you know, as a young man and trying to get spiritually aligned, and then seeing this, you know, this filthy back scenes, you know, scenario in Hollywood and in the music industry. I mean, on the one side you have artists, many of them actually are trying to express something with meaning, and then you've got the back end, the industry, the money, you know, revenue generation, you know, and so I just got, you know, by the time I was 20 years old, I said, no, wait a minute, hang on, this is not right. Man has not been created for this. You know, there's this creation which points to a creator. Get connected to that creator. That's what it's about. And it's not going to happen, you know, on stages in nightclubs and in recording studios. So I'm getting out of here. So going where? So I decided what I want to do is I want to go to Ethiopia. To why Ethiopia? Well, because I came to this conclusion that, you know, all of these holy people who came on the planet, you know, better known as prophets. So all of them were talking about basically the same thing. Get connected to the creator. The creator has a master plan, and that among that plan is a whole way of life, which you have to learn, and through that way of life, you're going to get connected. So where might that be? I mean, my father comes from a Jewish family. My mother comes from a Christian family. So I saw that, and I wasn't impressed. And I saw that, okay, probably the origins of that were, you know, really on, but it got twisted and turned and corrupted. And so where's the real thing? Where's the real message? Unadulterated. Okay. So through my little research, whatever I could come up with, I thought maybe I'm going to find this in Ethiopia, you know, which is a pretty, you know, that's not like, and by nature, I like to do stuff that nobody else does. So nobody was going to Ethiopia. People were going to India, Tibet, and stuff like that. So I'm going to go to Ethiopia. So people said, Ethiopia, man. I mean, like, so you don't even know their language, and you don't even know, you know, what's really there. You don't have any contact. What are you talking about? I mean, how are you going to, you know, connect to anything? So it was amazing. You know, I don't know, somehow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in my heart. I said, look, the one who I'm looking to connect with, he knows what I'm looking for, and he's going to show me. I had this full, you know, yaqeen that that's going to happen, and subhanallah, it did. It did. So anyway, so I also was a big fan, being involved in all the 60s civil rights movements and all the, you know, all the things that were going on in there. So I was a great fan of Malcolm X. And any Muslim who hasn't read the autobiography of Malcolm X needs to read that, like top priority, okay? This, and we, all of us new Muslim or converted Muslims, or whatever you want to call us, all of us in America, particularly of my age and around my age, we are all, you know, we were heavily influenced to come into Islam through Malcolm. Rahmatullahi Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Rahmatullahi Ta'ala alayhi rahmatan wasiya. May Allah, you know, elevate his status. Through his martyrdom, I mean, that was the beginning of spread of real Islam in America, and probably in a lot of places. So anyway, I was a big fan of his, but it wasn't really clear what Islam was. But I was very impressed with what he had to say when he went to Makkah, and then it changed his whole perspective about, you know, Islam and about racism and about whites and blacks, and everybody can live together as a brotherhood. So that was very inspiring. So I wanted to also, on the way to Ethiopia, check out the Muslims too, right? So I planned my journey to go from America. I went actually from New York to Luxembourg down through France, down from France down through Spain. Most of it was like just walking, hitchhiking, whatever, and ultimately reaching to Morocco, which was the first Muslim country that I came to, and I really planned to go there. So I just planned to go through, but it was such an enchanting place. I ended up staying there for about 6 months. And there I saw some amazing things. Number one, it was Ramadan, and, you know, spiritual, you know, exercise or disciplines, they all have fasting, but like this is the whole country fasting. They said, yeah, even our king is fasting. Can you believe that? Wow. You know, like this is unreal. And then again, back to the, you know, the dilemma that we have in America, social, you know, things. Somebody's pigment is black, somebody's pigment is lighter and darker, and so that makes you better or worse. You know, it's crazy. But that's a dilemma that the West has never, up until today, has not been able to reconcile. These people don't even, they're not even aware of this kind of a problem with this kind of concept. I said, wow, where, you know, how did they escape that? You know, how did they escape this racist thing, which is actually enveloped the entire world? So that was amazing to me. Um, the haves and the have-nots, like, you know, in America, it's not like just from today. I mean, even back in then, the haves, Beverly Hills, the have-nots, Central Los Angeles. These are two different countries. The same city, Los Angeles, California. You go to Beverly Hills, like where I used to live, and then you go down to the ghetto. You go down to Central Los Angeles. It is another country. And actually, as a musician, just to get the culture and being influenced, you know, by Malcolm C and others, so I purposely went to live in the black ghetto, and that changed my life for a very positive, in a very positive way. Even though it was a very negative kind of environment, but it was a fantastic experience, you know. And I talk about that extensively in the book. Um, okay, so the racial thing, they don't have that problem. The gap between the haves and the have-nots. That's also, I mean, people have, you have richer people, you have poorer people, but they all consider themselves part of the one brotherhood, and they're helping one another. Zakat, khairat, you know, sadaqat, you know, nafaqat. It was amazing to see how charity is just organically ingrained in their society. That just blew me away, really. And then, you know, in fact, as a musician, then also Morocco's big on that also. But that's another discussion, you know, is that okay or not? We won't get into that here. But anyway, as a musician, I wasn't a Muslim anyway, so then I hooked up with Moroccan musicians who are pretty much like musicians anywhere, you know. They weren't religious at all, but they had this soft spot for Deen in them, you know. And so I did see something, and I was always fascinated by adhan. I mean, whenever the adhan was called, I was like, I would just stop everything and just listen to this adhan. I don't know what this guy's saying, but it is, that's really just awesome. You know, that must be, I don't know what he's saying, but it's heavy. It's really awesome. So ultimately, but I didn't, you know, I didn't really meet really, you know, Muslims who could really show me what Islam really was, unfortunately. Or, I mean, that was always one of the system. So I didn't really get the whole picture, but I did get some glimpses in Morocco. And then yeah, I was just so enamored of Morocco. And then ultimately I said, hey, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be going to Ethiopia, right? Okay, let's on with the journey. So I picked up and I continued. It was about a year by the time I got to Ethiopia, just sort of meandering my way through Algeria, to Tunisia, then on to Libya, then through Libya. And all of these places, just amazing things happen to me. But we don't have time for that. So you can see one of the YouTube presentations, or hopefully, inshallah, in the book, I'll talk about it in detail. And just everywhere, it's just amazing stuff. And it's just building on what I saw, you know, in Morocco, and just step by step. And then down through Egypt and down through the River Nile, all the way down through Sudan, and then on a boat through Sudan. One of the most important things that happened was from Egypt to Sudan. And now it's like about a year on in this journey. And so I'm on this boat. It's like, I don't know if anybody's into like Mark Twain, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer. You have these old paddle wheel boats on the Mississippi River. So that's the kind of boat it is. It's like this, you know, out of 100 years old kind of paddle wheel boat, and you got animals, cargo, people, all on this boat. So among the people who were on that boat was a group of Sudani Bedouins, and they were camel traders. They used to take their camels to Egypt, sell those camels, and then they were coming back on the boat. And on the boat, they would call the adhan and offer their salat in Jamaat. And like and I just want to. I always bring this to the attention to Muslim audiences. I mean, you guys, you know, somebody's offering salat. You know, it's no big deal, right? Okay, we've been seeing that since day one of our birth, you know, and so it's like no big deal. But for somebody who's never seen this, it is mind-boggling. I cannot explain in words, you know, the experience, what impact it had on me. And so you're going to say, well, what do you mean? How do you didn't see? You've been a year traveling in the Muslim countries. So, but yeah, that's right. But all of those countries are Maliki countries. And in the Maliki madhab, they don't allow non-Muslims to get into to go into the masjid. So I never had the opportunity. And I was just really desired to just see what they're doing in these mosques, but I never, I never had that opportunity. So now I'm getting this opportunity to actually see them offering their prayer in Jamaat on the boat. It was mind-boggling. I mean, they just Allahu Akbar, and these guys standing in a perfect line like a military drill, with their eyes riveted to the ground. I mean, these guys are focused. I haven't seen anything like this. And all of a sudden, Allahu Akbar, and they're all like in the ruku, like one body. I mean, I'm like, wow, what is this? And then Sami Allahu liman hamida, they all stand up in unison, perfect harmony, and then Allahu Akbar, and then into sajda. That just blew me away, totally. I said, like, whatever religion that is in, that is it. That's what I'm looking for, you know. By the way, artists, they go by feeling, which Dan, they don't go by 2 and 2 is 4. It could be 5, it could be 5 million. We go by feelings, and it's intuition. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just put in my heart, that's it. Now, even though now I'm like, hey, this is it, but I've spent all this time, resources, all this effort, to get to Ethiopia. So then I go down through Sudan, and that was an amazing journey as well, amazing, experiences in Sudan. And ultimately, I get to Ethiopia. Now, when I get to Ethiopia, I wanted to meet up with these monks, and like these Coptic monks who live up in the mountains. I mean, these guys, you talk about zuhud, abstinence, dunya, ghair ragbati, and all that. Oh my God, it's just unbelievable. I mean, these guys are like day and night ibadah, world totally cut off, no connection. But you know what? Amazingly, with all of that, they had no light. They had no nur. And this is another wujdani kind of a thing, feelings. Wait a minute, I mean, this is just not right. If you guys are so connected with spiritualism, with real spirituality, you're going to be enlightened. And I didn't see any light on their faces. It wasn't because of their color, it was because there was no nur. Now, at the same time, since I'm always connecting with Muslims, and even in Ethiopia, I'm attracted to Muslims, and I meet Muslims everywhere. And there he is, a guy with his shop, common, Muslim, maybe a laborer or shopkeeper, whatever. He's got light on his face. He's got a sajda mark on his forehead. He's got his tasbih, he's reading his Quran. This guy is lit up. He's got light. So this just confirmed, along with the other, glimpses, and so it was stages. So and ultimately, I actually accepted Islam. There was, people always ask me, okay, who gave you shahada? Nobody, it really. So I just, okay, that's it. Okay, I want to be a Muslim. So I just went down to this big mosque in the center of Ethiopia, and like, okay, I'm going to be a Muslim. So I'm trying to find somebody to show me how to pray. Actually, I took a little room there in the middle. It's like the ghetto, like, I mean, just really, deep down ghetto. And so then I just asked people, my roommates and stuff like, okay, you're Muslims, so show me how to pray. Well, you know what? We don't really know, but ask so and so. I couldn't find anybody that actually could teach me how to pray. Can you believe that? Subhanallah. So then finally, they said, okay, we'll just go to the mosque and just do what they do, and that's how you're gonna learn. I said, okay, fine. So it just so happened that happened to be Salatul Jummah. So my first salat in the masjid was Salatul Jummah, and that was a pretty harrowing experience. Also, you can see that in my, some of the YouTube. I talk about that in more detail. But anyway, so then Ramadan was coming again. So then I went to a place called Harar, which is just amazing place. And then anyway, so I ended up spending about 7 months in Ethiopia, and that's just amazing stuff happened to be in Ethiopia. And then ultimately, it was kind of tense because it's not a tourist place, and the security people couldn't figure out what am I doing there, and they really were very suspicious of me, and they kept dragging me in every day for interrogation. And finally, I just left from there with my Muslim brothers were saying, just go to Yemen because they'll appreciate you won't have this kind of problem there. So I went to Yemen again, just amazing experiences. I could go on and on about Yemen. And then ultimately, after several months, then came time for Hajj. And so they wanted me to go to Hajj. I said, okay. So I went on a boat actually from Hudaydah up to Jeddah. And by this time, I've developed a lot of illness. Actually, I was developing, a amoeba abscess in my liver and all this other kind of stuff, which I wasn't really aware of. And so I was delirious on this whole 3-day journey on the boat, and they had to actually carry me off the boat. And then, in those days, Jeddah was like a little fishing village, 1970, 71. So, and then, but ultimately, subhanAllah, that's also an amazing experience, a lot to talk about there, but no time. So ultimately, alhamdulillah, I was able to actually perform Hajj. And after Hajj, I wanted to stay there and just continue studying in Medina, but I had to have an operation on my lung, which had collapsed along with hepatitis and pneumonia, and it was really a mess. And then ultimately, I had to go back to America and have an operation on my lung, which alhamdulillah was successful. Then I entered into Los Angeles City College for a year of Arabic instruction to go back to Medina. And on my way back to Medina in 1973, I met with Tablighi people in New York. And so I just, the next day took off with them for 4 months around America, and then went for another 4 months with them to India and Bangladesh, and then ultimately came back to America, got married. And then by 1978, the original plan to go back to Saudi Arabia did materialize, alhamdulillah. So in 1978, I was back in Makkah. I was accepted in Jami'ah Ummul Qura. And in those days, we had a lot of halaqat with mashayikh and ulama, and it was pretty open. And that era, unfortunately, is now extinct, but I was very fortunate to be able to get the tail end of that. And then 1985, so people from Binuri town in Jami'at Ummul Islamiyah in Karachi, so they had so many people, foreign students, and they were wanted me to come and teach there in their institution. So that was great for me also. I thought that would be a great experience for my kids also. And so very heavily, with very heavy heart to leave Makkah, who wants to leave Makkah, but because of other opportunities and other dynamics, which I didn't see happening there, which I saw happening in Pakistan here. So alhamdulillah, in 85, I came and I took on a teaching position in Jami'ah Ummul Islamiyah, Binuri town, 1985. I was there for about 7 years. We developed a whole section for teaching foreigners, which we taught them in the Arabic medium, if that's still going on. And then other Jamias, most of them actually follow suit, Darul Uloom and Jamia Binuriya, Jamia Farooqi, and other institutions. They started a similar type of program. In the meantime, I ultimately, 1992, I joined my old and very dear friend, Dr. Amjad Ali, in his Madrasa Aisha Lil Banat, ladies institution, and probably the first one that started in that, and probably the premier still ladies institution of that type. And I was there for about 15 years, teaching books of Hadith, Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and others. And I was teaching in other places at the same time. There's another long story which is kind of interesting. Actually, originally, as I came to Pakistan, I was sent by Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, who, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reward him. He's just an amazing person. And there's a lot of people like him, people don't like him, he's this, he's that, but people who knew him, whether you agree with him or you don't agree with him, he was a real person. I mean, this was a person that was like from the old days. I mean, a person that loved Allah and loved people who love Allah, and mashallah, I can talk about him for a long time also. Anyway, he set up an arrangement, privately, to send people like us to various missions and various, places. So through him, I was actually sponsored to go to Pakistan, but actually that sponsorship was a private thing, and actually it was very loosely organized, and it was so disorganized that like for 3 years I never got a salary. So anyway, long story short, so I have to do something, right? So coming from, I used to always, live by, I was in show business and I did other kind of businesses, as a Muslim. So I said, okay, now I'm gonna have to do something for a living. So now Al Khair, that business that I started, creative quality wear. So Al Khair, creative quality wear. So that was a business I started with the idea that, okay, I have to do something. So let me link it with what I'm all about, which is teaching and trying to, invite people to Islam. So let's have a business that does that, like our ancestors used to do, and most of our ancestors were doing some type of business or some kind of craft and trade, and that business or trade, it itself was a medium of bringing people close to Islam and not simply, earning profits. That was a secondary thing. So I said, okay, let's do that. People are not doing that, so let's do that. So I started a business called Al Khair Creative Quality Wear back in the 90s. And so I wanted to make it a model. And that model ultimately led to the creation of the Arbudia business model. So I found other like-minded people, about 40 or 50 individuals conglomerated on that model, from ulama and specialists and, academia, LUMS professors, people from IBA, ulama, muftis, industry specialists. And so it was about 40, 50 people gathered together. They used to join with me here in my house where I am now in Hawke's Bay in Karachi. It's on the beach. And so all these people would converge, and every quarter we'd have 3 or 4 day meetings. And this went on for about 3 or 4 years. And ultimately, the Arbudia business model was developed. You can check that out. UBM, ubmtrust.org. You can check that out. And that's a whole business model. It's a consultancy now, and that's up and running, alhamdulillah. So now, so that's like the business I started, and then UBM, which was that consultancy or that whole system that would actually show people how to translate and transform your business and all the business activities from merely, vehicles and processes to earn money and maximize shareholder value to maximize your intrinsic with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, transform your business from just making money to an act of worship. That's why we call it the Ubudiya business model. Not just Sharia compliancy. You can be Sharia compliant and not even believe in Allah. You can follow the rules and regulations of Sharia, which conventional banks are doing. Almost every main conventional bank has a Sharia compliant financial product, but it's not Ubudiya compliant because it's not, the intention is not there. The connection with Allah subhanahu, you have to, want to please Allah with your business transactions. So that whole model, we came over that. Okay, now going back to Al Khair, which was an organization, and we actually developed a mission and a vision. So the vision of Al Khair, the business that we started, it led to the creation of the Arbudia business model, because the vision of Al Khair was to ultimately, the ultimate vision was not simply to make a business, but to transform business from a material base to an Ubudiya base. So to transform the objectives, the perception, the objectives, and the practices of business, right? To transform the perception of business, what business is all about, why we're doing it, the objectives, the specific objectives, that we make as our objectives and goals, and how we, are the practices, how we, actually facilitate and how we, execute those or bring about to fruition those objectives. So to transform the perceptions, the objectives, and the practice of business from a material base to an Ubudiya base. Ubudiya perceptions, Ubudiya objectives, and Ubudiya practices, right? So that's a whole transformation, process. Okay, so that was the vision of Al Khair, and that ultimately led to the creation of the Arbudia business model, which became a whole model. And then, alhamdulillah, that's, being promoted globally, inshallah. It's still in the sort of infant stages, because it's kind of a new concept. It's not easy to get people to understand and buy into it, but alhamdulillah, that's going on and ongoing. Okay, the vision, or I should say, the mission of our Khair, the business that we started back in the 90s, the mission was, okay, we want to transform business. Okay, so what's the vehicle? So the vehicle that we're going to use in the business is a business which is, you know, offering products and services which are aligned with a healthy, meaningful lifestyle. Okay, provide humanity with beneficial products and services. Provide humanity. That's why we said healthy, meaningful, you know, lifestyle rather than saying Islam, because we want to invite, you know, the entire humanity to this. So we called it, you know, we called our vision, you know, inviting or, you know, benefiting mankind through offering them services and products that will benefit them, you know, that are aligned with a healthy, meaningful lifestyle. So providing humanity with beneficial products aligned with a healthy, meaningful lifestyle. Okay? So that's making products that are aligned with the healthy, meaningful lifestyle. So then the question comes, and ultimately, okay, what is the healthy, meaningful lifestyle that we're supposed to, you know, use these products to facilitate? Okay? That's the main thing. And that is Islam, right? And, you know, Islam itself, what is Islam? Islam is holistic perfection, you know, holistic perfection in everything, you know. So we talk about holistic health, we talk about holistic whatever. So Islam is a total whole. It's holistic perfection in everything, in business, you know, in our careers, in our, you know, worldly endeavors, in our next worldly endeavors. So it's holistic perfection in all these things. Holistic perfection in our belief sets, in our ibadah, in our transactions, in our interactions, you know, muamalat, muasharat. And it's also holistic perfection physically. It's also holistic perfection spiritually. Okay? It's also holistic perfection in all of those three components of the human being: body, mind, spirit, soul. So holistic perfection in body, mind, and ultimately soul, you know, the thing that runs the whole system. Okay, so then the next step would be, okay, now we need to teach people practically, like we do with the Abudia business model, okay, how to do this kind of thing in the business context. So in a general, whole, holistic life style context, I mean, all the various roles that we have in life. So how do we incorporate this practically, all these teachings, so that we can have holistic health in all, you know, realms of our life? How can we be holistically healthy and live a holistically healthy lifestyle, spiritually, physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially, now going to the macro, and then ultimately environmentally. Now, as I mentioned earlier, since I was raised like that, like my mother was into all of this kind of stuff, you know, she still is. She's 90 years old and still headlong into it, you know. And so after accepting Islam, which is the epitome of healthy, meaningful everything, so I find that Muslims are so disconnected from every meaning of health, not only spiritually, but physically. Their diet is atrocious. You know, exercise, zilch, zero, you know. Sleep patterns, you know, atrocious. You know, the whole lifestyle is just needs a total revamping, a total overhauling. Now, I'm a teacher in the madrasa. That's been my profession for the past 30, 40 years. So we teach all these things. We study these things. We teach all these things in the madrasa, but it's not getting out there in the real world. It's in our bubble world of the madrasa, you know. So I started thinking that, hey, wait a minute, you know, I'm an activist for, you know, I'm still who I was in the 1960s, an activist, you know, for all of this, you know, meaning in life and healthy ways of life. So how are we going to do that? I mean, the sectors that we need to get this information to, we're not addressing them. We don't even know what's going on in those sectors. We madrasa people, right? And the people in those sectors, in the quote unquote real world, they have no connection with us. They have no approach with us, and as a matter of fact, they're totally cut off from this, and that's by design also. That's another long story. And so, you know, there's that disconnect. So how do we make a connect? So then I started thinking, you know, okay, we got thousands of madaris, we got people who can teach Bukhari, Muslim, tafsir, everything better than me, but nobody's doing this. How can we turn these teachings into some practical stuff, like in workshops and courses that common people can understand, they can follow. We can give them exercises, we can give them coaching and mentoring, you know, and just make it easy to learn these things and put them into their life, you know. So then I came up with this thing, okay, let's actually develop, you know, courses and workshops and resources to teach people how to live Islam, yani a healthy, meaningful lifestyle. So then this all developed ultimately into what we now call healthy, meaningful living. And so we're going to share, you know, my contacts. And so I want you to, you know, to connect with me. And by the way, I know that, you know, most of our people who are on board today, you know, young people, the young generation, and you're probably going through a lot of the things that we went through, that I went through, and I'm sure, you know, there's going to be a lot of connect. So I'm really, you know, I'm looking forward to the question and answer session, which we're going to start very shortly, but it's going to be short. And so I invite you all to connect with me. I'm going to share my email address. Connect with me. You know, we can share. You know, you can think about your questions you want to ask. Send them to me. I can think about it. I'll benefit. Inshallah, hopefully you can benefit as well. And secondly, I want to offer you a kind of a gift from my side. So all you have to do is, you know, send me your email address, and I'll send you an intro to this whole program. You know, a short sort of session, and I'll send that to you all. And yeah, I'd love to have you on board. So let's make a connect, and let's not just, you know, an hour session and then okay, wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, see you later, you know, in akhirah, or I don't know. But let's make this the beginning of a journey together that, you know, will really produce results, you know, and you can't produce results in an hour talk, you know, regardless. So it's a lifelong journey. You know, I've been on the journey for the past 60 years, 60 plus years. You know, I'm about 70 years old now, and it's just like I just started, and I'm still just like the beginner in the course. So let's, you know, join together, and let's, you know, let's learn together, and, you know, connect, and mashallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. So that's like what I wanted to present, and I would open open the floor for discussion. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Saf, for that amazing talk. There are a few questions, and that I'll just try to sum up some so that we have less time. So one of the first questions that actually pops to our mind is that you converted, right? And you came to Islam, but then there's this entire huge journey afterwards as well, because a lot of people convert to Islam, but then there was something that kept driving you, and to see sort of more knowledge in Islam. And there was one question where it's saying that a lot of times the youth, especially, we sort of fall prey to procrastination, and we
Absolutely.
basically don't know how to sort of progress in Deen. So if you could basically talk about that, that once you did come to Islam, there was something that kept driving you, and that thirst for knowledge. So if you could just sort of talk about that briefly.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think it's in our DNA. My whole family is kind of like that. We're like, number one, we don't do things that other people do. Number two, if we're going to do something, my father has this motto. May Allah give him hidayat. He's a wonderful person, but he's still, you know, without Islam. He says, if you're going to do something, do it right. Okay? If it's worth doing, do it right. So I have the advantage, I would say, that it's kind of like our tradition, our family tradition. You know, if you're going to do something, just go for it, full go, you know, and don't look back. But it doesn't mean that, like, you know, I didn't have ups and downs, you know, and there's been some really heavy downs as well. You know, I'll talk about that in the book as well, inshallah. But and I know that all of you are going through those things. Procrastination is part of human nature, and so this is how do we deal with that? You need motivation. You need support structures. You know, yatullah al jamaat. You need to be connected with the connected. I have a term I say, connect with the connected. One, two, disconnect with the disconnected.
Hmm.
Connect with the connected. The people who are connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, connect with them. The people who are disconnected, disconnect with them. Now, that has their ramifications that we need to clarify also, because, in today's scenario, most of our people that we're somehow or another connected to, they're probably very much unconnected and probably taking us towards disconnectivity. So, but we have to, there's social etiquettes, there's social structures that we have to observe, and we can't just become hermits and all that. So I talk about that in our social module in detail. So again, that's a long topic. The bottom line is stay connected with the people that will help to motivate you on. That's why,
Right.
Nabi Alayhi Sallam says, Yadullah mal jamaat. The direct help, literally the hand of Allah is with the group, with the collective, which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, khair, his help, his assistance, his protection is going to be with the collective. And so we need a support structure. So hopefully we'll connect and we'll, help one another and support one another, inshallah. So looking forward to that also, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Hope that helps.
There's another question, and this person is asking. They're saying that I think they're talking about interacting with people who maybe have Islamophobia, or especially when you're dealing with people who have these presuppositions about Islam, especially that's found in the West today. So when you're dealing with such people, how should you interact? When is I think the best way to go about it, interacting with such people, and when you're facing such questions?
Yeah. Okay. Number one, don't be intimidated. The general thing, especially what I've seen, in the quote unquote, born Muslims, that's a very long topic, why we feel like that. There's a lot of history behind that. But generally, people feel intimidated. And we have this thing that, Islamophobia comes from the West. It comes from these highly quote unquote progressive societies. They're not really progressive, So first of all, don't be intimidated. But don't be arrogant also. It's Allah's blessing that we're Muslims. He's given us tawfiq, and it's a special favor. And we're not intimidated, but we don't get arrogant, and we don't also we don't have a disdain and a hatred for those people. It's just probably we're the reason that they have this Islamophobia more than anything else. And so we have as you say in Urdu, khair khwahi, right? Like sympathy and empathy for this poor guy. He's got this Islamophobia, which is preventing him from the best of this world and the next. So first of all, we should tawajjuh ilallah, that oh Allah, open this guy's heart, or this he or she's heart, and let them show, and make me a means of displaying real Islam. And it's basically going to be about action. As the old saying goes, action speaks much louder than words. One picture is better than 1,000 words. There's so many sayings like that. So it's basically going to be our action, But don't get intimidated, and don't get pessimistic, and keep, a good dhan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show something better. Don't get into discussions that you're not prepared, to get into, which is probably pretty much 100% for most people. People say Islam is this, Islam is this, Islam is this. I say, well, that's not what I understand. I understand totally different from that. And I hope that you would see the other side. For example, people say, usually people, the Islamophobes, they probably come from Christian or perhaps Jewish or Hindu backgrounds. Say, suppose if I go by the news, what people are saying about Christianity, or the Christian fanatics, or the Hindu fanatics, or the Buddhist fanatics, or you got all kinds of weirdos out there in the name of different ideologies. So do we judge that by by that? So, and anyway, that's a long topic as well. Perhaps we can develop a kind of structure, a kind of a course for that, because actually it's getting more and more prevalent, and people should have the tools to deal with that. That's a long topic, but the first thing I would start out with is, be positive, don't be intimidated, and don't start hating people who hate you. That's the last thing we want to do. Idfa billati hiya ahsan. And then how we're going to deal with these situations, perhaps we can, open up, we can probably work in collaboration with this, we can open up a kind of a series on, simple steps, how we can address these common, uh, FAQs, if you like,
Mm.
by the Islamophobes, and some simple stuff that we could, offer to them right off the bat. But don't get into debates. When you find it's over your head, just say, "Well, I'm not a specialist in this, but I think you got a perception that you probably need to look into." So
Mm.
don't get into heated discussions. Don't start hating people. And if you're not fully equipped to deal with the issue, don't get involved and try and get resources to pass them on. I will advise on one book which maybe some of you might know about. It's called. Let me see if I just have that book. Um, yeah, I'll just show you this. This is one of the best things that I've seen written in the English language. A Thinking Person's Guide to Islam. Okay, and his Highness Prince Ghazi Ibn Muhammad. Now, this guy is actually, I think he's the cousin of the King of Jordan, but this guy is amazing. And this book answers most of those, most of what Islamophobes, the stuff they throw up. And it just answers them very simply, beautifully, straight ahead. It's just the best thing I've ever read in the English language that deals with this kind of thing. The Thinking Person's Guide to Islam. Okay, so I would recommend anybody has this issue, and even if you don't have these kind of issues, you're not facing it, get that book and read it. I personally benefit a lot from that book, actually. So that's a great resource for you. Hope that
Right.
helps.
Jazakallah, Sheikh Saab. Just one final thing, because we
Okay.
have a lot of young people listening who are from students who are in universities, either doing corporate jobs, stuff like that. So, in terms of seeking knowledge, what path would you recommend to students who are in university or young working professionals? What is the best path to take, given they're balancing their sort of dunya and deen?
Yeah. So this was pretty much of a total dilemma several decades ago, and it's something that I was always concerned with because people used to come to me with the same scenario. We didn't have anything to offer. Now, Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of resources out there now, particularly online. You might have there in Lahore certain courses. I'm not aware of everything that you got going. I know that you do have certain things there in Lahore. You might be coming from different places. Now we have things online, and we have a lot of good stuff online that's designed specifically for that. So we need to design, as on a priority basis. And in the module that we call it the intellectual health. We call it yani as-siha aqlaniya. So in that module, we talk about, how we need to develop ourselves intellectually. And there's 3 tiers of knowledge that we need to develop. Number 1, our knowledge about Allah Jalla Jalaluhu himself. Who is Allah? What are his qualities? What are his attributes? Basically, aqaid. This is knowledge billah. This is about Allah. That's the first tier of knowledge. The first thing we should be getting ourselves, make sure that we have the essentials in that. The next tier of knowledge is the knowledge of how to execute the pleasure of Allah, which is Sharia, rules and regulations, how to live a life of servitude, and that's Sharia. So we need to find courses that are developed and designed for us to meet our actual needs, not just a lot of polemics. What about this? If this happens, what's your dalil on that? What's the cross dalil? We don't need all of that. We need how do we do it? Okay, so there's good stuff out there, and probably we're going to be also offering stuff like that. So the how to follow Sharia practically, broken down to our level that's going to be practical for us, kam ki cheez, as they say. So the third level of knowledge is the knowledge that teaches us how to live in the world, because we live in this world. Just like I talk about a lot about physical health, because to live a life of servitude, you need to be healthy. If you're sick, you're overweight, you're obese, you got diabetes, you got heart problems, arthritis, dementia, I don't know what. How are you going to live a life of ubudiyya, an effective life of ubudiyya, or any other role for that matter? So, how to be healthy, how to be the best in your career. And Nabi alayhi salatu says, if you're going to do anything, do it with excellence, right? So the third tier of knowledge are the support systems that support our physical existence. And in that tier, which is the last tier, It's an important tier, but it's the last one. It's a support for our real objectives, which is knowing Allah and then obeying Allah. So we live a physical existence to support that physical existence and make that support, of our physical existence also part of our worship, right? That's the holistic approach. Make our careers, our professional, also part of our acts of worship. So for that, we need to also be the best. So we have these three tiers. So we kind of break that down and we go into a gap analysis on that. And then we look at it, okay, what do we really need to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Aqaid wa ghayra. And then we do a gap analysis on that. What do we know, what we don't know? And obviously what we don't know is probably quite a lot. Now we come up with a strategy to fill that gap. We do the same thing again with, the knowledge of Sharia, the knowledge of the how. So what do we know what to do? What don't we know what to do? So make a gap analysis of that and come up with a strategy to fill that gap. And similarly, in our professional lives, in developing our health, to have a robust health and vitality, so we can live that kind of life that we want to live. So we come out with programs and strategies, with definite steps, with definite plans, with timetables, slot out time. You're going to have to be good at time management, which we also, touch on, and we're very, and that's part of our aslaf. They're very keen on. You can't do all this stuff unless you're very well disciplined. You're effectively managing your time. And it's not about managing time because you got 24 hours. Everybody has. It's about managing me, you. We have to learn to manage ourselves within the time frame that Allah has given us. So there is stuff out there, and probably we can also, in our forums that we can develop, we can also, trade, stuff that we can look into stuff that's out there already, What kind of programs do we have online? What kind of programs do we have? Let's assess them and get the opinion of ulama, that, okay, this looks good, that's approved, this is not wacko kind of stuff, And that we can set up a course for ourselves. So all this we can do probably more effectively when we have a long-term interaction, inshallah. Hopefully that will be established. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Saab. Allah ko bahut zyada khair de. I would urge everyone to, I've put in the email in the comments. I'll put in Sheikh Saab's email in the comments again. I'll be putting in Sheikh Saab's email in the video description on YouTube and Facebook as well. And I would urge everyone to connect to Sheikh Saab, inshallah. I plan on doing that myself. I think Sheikh Saab, you mentioned previously as well that you launched a course, right, on the healthy, meaningful lifestyle. Is there a way to access the course for other people?
Yeah. It's on Udemy, and what we'll do is, those who are interested in the course, we'll give you special coupons for that. We can give you discounts also. So just connect with us, and I'll give you a little intro. That's free, But we do have a course that we offer to people on Udemy. But connect with me, and if you're interested in the course, see the intro. If it's a good fit, samajh aa jayega, this is something I want to do. Okay, just let us know. And we'll send you, special discount coupons, and you can do the course. It's about a 6-hour course, so it's pretty extensive. And we go into the spiritual module and into the physical module, which talks about diet, exercise, sleep management, stress, etc., etc. So yeah, so welcome, yeah. And that's ongoing, and that's a whole course structure, which is ongoing, it's on developing, and it'll become a whole. Hopefully, one day it'll be curriculum. Inshallah, that's our hope. It'll be offered in schools and universities. Anyway, it'll be on our school, in our university, online, inshallah. Yeah. That's, just check out HM Living, You can probably type that up there on the page as well. I did. HM Living, HMLIVING.online.
I'm just putting it in the comment section.
Yeah. It's the same thing as my as my email address, right? Hashim at HM Living Online. So that HM Living Online, actually, that's the website. Yeah. So we've got other stuff on there. Yeah, we got podcasts up there. We've got a daily 2-minute thing that I do. One day an ayat of Quran, one day a hadith, and one day what we call wisdom of the wise. So from our aslaf and our mashayikh. So every day there's a 2-minute. That's up on Facebook. You can see my Facebook and Twitter account. particularly the Facebook account. So every day, pretty much, you know, they have a thing, they say daily-ish, you know, pretty much daily, inshallah. And so it's just a 2-minute thing. It might go to 3 minutes. And so we give a little, what I call fikr snacks, you know, fikr snacks, you know. So there's all kind of like rubbish out there. So just take 2 minutes and see those. You can see those on the website. You can see those also on the Facebook page, inshallah. So check it out, inshallah. Yeah.
Could we have a dua from you at the end?
Inshallah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala sayyidil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahabati ajma'in amma ba'd. اللهم ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وان لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين لا اله الا انت سبحانك انا كنا من الظالمين لا اله الا انت سبحانك انا كنا من الظالمين ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا واسرافنا في امرنا وثبت اقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث اصلح لنا شاننا كله ولا تكلنا الى انفسنا طرفه عين اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وادخلنا الجنة مع أبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين اللهم إنا نسألك خير ما سألك منه نبيك سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه نبيك سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم اللهم احفظنا من ذلات الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن اللهم ربنا آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها اللهم ربنا تقبل منا من كل من أوصانا بالدعاء إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.